Okay, good morning. Today we will focus on different approaches to character education in secondary education. So for today's topic, we have been assigned 2 readings, and I'm going to basically focus on the contents of these readings. The first one is Smart and Good Schools by Matthew Davidson, Thomas Licona, and Vladimir Khmelkov. And their paper is about how schools, good schools, and smart schools should be in character education. They first state some important, or basically 2 problems, which can hinder effective character education at schools. One of the problems is United States specific problem. They say that most character education programs in the United States target K-12 students, first grade to 8th grade students, in other words. So that's a problem with United States, but it's not a problem in Turkey, because in Turkish case, the Ministry of Education embedded character education and values education objectives in all courses, in all curricula, from 1st to 12th grade. So you are required to read the details of these objectives in different courses through 1st to 12th grade in Sarı and Yolcu 2019 chapter in your Turkish textbook. The second problem is perhaps more applicable to different cultures. It is stated as the resistance of high school teachers to character education. The resistance stems from the fact that most teachers in high schools come to perceive themselves as field specialists. In other words, a teacher is a chemistry teacher. If a teacher is a chemistry teacher, he or she believes that he or she should teach chemistry only. So they tend to identify themselves as subject matter specialists. The second problem is that they perceive character education useful only if that character education serves for academic achievement. So most teachers in high school perceive their duty to teach their own subject matters, and they do not emphasize, or they do not perceive character education as an important endeavor in educational process unless it serves to have higher grades, for instance, by the students. So these are 2 problems in character education. Stating these problems, Davidson, Licona, and Khmelkov focus on 2 purposes of character education. So what are these purposes? The first one is that the character education has a purpose to prepare all young people to lead a flourishing life. A flourishing life means that a life which provides them a healthy, a meaningful development in their mental and personal life. So it is important to identify and develop human strengths which everyone can build in character education programs. And it is important to maximize the potential of all young people to have a meaningful and fulfilling life. A meaningful life can become meaningful only if the person have a value priority, some important guiding principles in life, which might help these people to understand the world, understand the other people, the events that take place in the world. And for having a fulfilling, in other words, a satisfactory life, we should feel that we have integrity, we are able, capable people who can choose freely their behaviors to have impact on the environment and in our own lives. So the second purpose of character education is to reduce the self and other destructive behaviors. That's a huge problem in contemporary world, because in high schools and secondary education, we observe many self-destructive and other destructive behaviors. So the aim of a character education program should be to prevent young people to hurt themselves and the society. And it should aim to provide a good character example to young people to prevent negative behaviors. So they first set these 2 important goals to prepare all young people to lead a flourishing life and to reduce the self and other destructive behaviors. And then they go on explaining each one of them. And they also provide their own understanding, their own theorization of what character education means. So let's move on. So remember the second purpose, preventing self-destructive and other destructive behaviors. So what are these self-destructive and other destructive behaviors at school settings. So I made a list. This is a quick list which comes to my mind when I think, but these will be the problems that you're going to face in your professional life as psychological counselors working at schools. So let's look at this list. Academic dishonesty means cheating, plagiarism, and other kind of misbehaviors for having high grades. Another problem is absenteeism or truancy. Absenteeism is missing classes. Truancy is not coming to school at all. So these are some important personal problems. They might be self-destructive mostly, but it might also create problems for other people. In-class behaviors can be problematic, for instance. An important problematic in-class behavior is cyberloafing. Cyberloafing means that at the time of the lectures or the classes, students distract themselves by engaging in mobile technologies. So surfing on internet, playing video games on smartphones and so on. These are called cyberloafing, siber aylaklık in Turkish. And these cyberloafing behaviors decrease the students' academic success level. Bullying is a very important problem. You might have learned about it in other classes as well. Any sort of aggression and violence in school settings, plus when students become adolescents, dating practices start, we know, and dating violence is another misbehavior. So these are some personal and social behavioral problems which we might face. In addition, we can also have instances of substance use or abuse, or sorts of sexual promiscuity or adolescent pregnancy, for instance, or we might have discipline problems at school settings and any sort of disrespectful, impulsive behaviors which might create problems in the educational process. So these are everyday problems at school settings which I can think of as a list. So these are self-destructive and other destructive behaviors. So for instance, academic dishonesty is mostly a self-destructive, or cyberloafing is mostly a self-destructive behavior, whereas dating violence, bullying are other destructive behaviors as well. So what's the aim of character education? The aim of character education is to educate young people to have such a character that they do not engage in these negative behaviors to the highest extent possible. So in their paper, the authors define character in a very different way than we have defined previously. But it's a very important distinction that we should take into account. So they divide character into two types. The first one is performance character, and the second one is moral character. We talked about moral character in the previous weeks, but they also coined the term performance character to mean the character which is necessary to do the best work possible. So in school settings, the performance, the academic performance, academic achievement, or academic success is an important outcome. So according to the authors, the students should have a personality or a character which might enable them to have the highest possible achievement by using certain important values as guiding principles. So performance character is the character which is necessary to do the best work possible. It includes values or virtues such as working hard, developing talents, and striving for excellence. It is about having a mastery orientation. Mastery orientation means that the person is dominantly motivated by having an impact on the environment, having a control on the environment. So this is called mastery orientation, hakimiyet yönelimi. So this mastery orientation in life can be at school, at work. If you think about life as a whole, if we can build performance character in this student in high school years, then we can hope, or we can, to a certain extent, guarantee that this person will have a principle of excellence, a principle of self-development, and a principle of hardworking at work or in his or her personal life as well. So what are related values? which might serve as guiding principles in performance character: diligence, perseverance, work ethic, ingenuity, self-discipline, responsibility, and the like. As you observe, these are all related to self-regulation, controlling one's own behaviors, perseverance, azim, self-discipline, responsibility. So these are very important values for having a character which enables the person to do the best work possible. But according to the authors, performance character alone is not enough. So it should be together with what we call moral character, which is necessary to do the right thing willfully, regardless of personal preference or convention, for the welfare of others. So moral character is the character as we defined in the first week. It is about doing the right thing. It's about concerning the welfare of other people around us. So it's concerned with maintaining healthy relationships and ethical conduct or ethical behaving in any kind of social setting, including schools as well. And moral character is about having a relational orientation. So mastery orientation versus relational orientation. What is relational orientation? The person is basically motivated by or motivated for maintaining good relationships with other people. So as you can observe, having control over the environment and having good relationships with other people do complement each other. Okay, so what are the related guiding principles for moral character? Helpfulness, benevolence, love, respect, and so on. So if you compare the values of performance character, they are self-focused values. The basic focus is the self in these values here. But if you look at the moral character values, helpfulness, benevolence, love, respect, these are social focus values. These guiding principles guide the behaviors in social interactions. So that's why they complement each other. So this complementation is graphically represented by the authors in the chapter in that way. So this figure assumes that both the performance character and the moral character should exist together. They balance each other and they go together. They are intertwined, in other words. Okay? Intertwined, iç içe geçmiş. So without one, the other cannot produce the best possible outcome in the moral sense. So how can we achieve such kind of a character in which both the performance and the morality is concerned? One item or one strategy that the authors suggest is to study the lives of important figures in the history. So it is the lives of character, they say. So who are these figures? These are exemplar people in history. They can be religious people, the religious figures of different faiths, the prophets, or some religious leaders who did important things for their followers. They might be business leaders who set their own business and achieved high standards, but also having an impact on the society's welfare. They are physicians, teachers, civil rights advocates, philanthropists. Philanthropist means someone who loves people. Philanthropy, insanlara yardım ve yardımcı olmak, insanların hayatını iyileştirmek için hayatını ve servetini adayan kişi. Philanthropists. Leaders of social movements. So these are important figures. So the authors suggest that in character education, if we use such figures in history, we would observe that they both have a performance character and the moral character. So someone who sets his own business and becomes very successful in business does not have only a performance character. It's not only about making money or controlling oneself to make the most rational investments, economical investments, but also these people have donations, for instance, to different societies or foundations, so that these foundations or societies can develop solutions to everyday problems. So they give money to different institutions so that these institutions study on different problems of society to solve them. This is called philanthropy. So these people are typical examples for a combination of performance and moral character, and their lives can be examined as examples of good character, they say. So in Turkish history, we have many such figures, both in business and in historical military or leadership examples and figures. And by using this framework that the authors provide, it is possible that in Turkish educational system, for character education, we can make the students learn the lives of important Turkish historical figures, and we can try to make students understand how they achieved a high excellent performance and how they use these performance-related outcomes to better the lives of their own societies, the Turkish society. Also, also the performance character is important because it is closely related to achievement. For instance, when we survey the literature, we observe that girls have better academic performance than boys throughout the education process, although boys have better performance on SAT-like tests. SAT is a test which is similar to YKS in Turkey, in the university entrance examination. So what we observe that in standardized objective tests, boys or men have higher scores than girls or women, but in actual academic processes, we observe that girls or women have higher grades or higher grade point average scores than boys or men. So that's something which is controversial. So why is this the case? Perhaps the problem is in SAT system in the United States. The problem is that the SAT test is a little bit biased in terms of its content. It is biased in favor of men or boys. So the questions are such framed that it is more likely that the boys might answer these questions correctly than girls. But when we observe, when we go through the empirical research on this academic achievement issue, what we see is that the character strength called self-discipline is more important for girls, and having higher self-discipline makes them more successful in academic settings as compared to boys, although girls have lower objective test scores. So it appears that this is not only about one's aptitude level or ability, it is about the effort that the girls put forth, which is guided by self-discipline value. So having self-discipline as part of a student's character is very important for having excellent performance. That's why, according to the authors of your reading, that's why a performance character is an important component of character education programs. Another finding is that grit and curiosity are among the important character strengths that bring about success. So grit means courage or perseverance. So this is that means that when we start studying, when we work on a certain intellectual issue at school settings, sometimes we may face failure. Excuse me. So when a person faces failure, there are two behavioral options: stop exerting effort or keep on exerting effort. So perseverance, devam ettirme, sürdürme, is a very important value because it is inevitable that we face with problems. But when we face problems, we should feel the courage, the self-confidence, or the perseverance that when we keep on studying or working, we can have good results. So this is one component of performance character. The other component is curiosity. Most intellectual issues at school require curiosity. People should be curious, should be very much willing to understand and explain the reasons of why things are happening in nature. So it is an important value, a self-direction value, as we will learn it in the future, which guides successful academic pursuit. And when students have character strengths which improve their effort and quality of work, classroom climate also changes according to research. So the classroom climate means the general setting, the general social atmosphere in the classroom. So if students do not have a good performance character, it is not possible that they attend to the content of the course. In other words, they perhaps do not listen to their teachers. They distract themselves through cyber loafing and some other kinds of self-destructive behavior. And it is also possible that in such a classroom, some students who are not interested in the educational process can sabotage the ongoing educational process. So it becomes impossible to have healthy and useful, fruitful educational processes in the classroom. Therefore, when students develop a performance character which requires perseverance, courage, self-discipline, curiosity, and so on, then just imagine a classroom in which all students put their all attention to their teachers, listening, trying to participate in the classroom, asking questions, solving problems, and so on. So this becomes a very facilitative learning environment. In this environment, teachers can feel more ease in effectively teaching without distraction by negative behaviors. Just imagine a teacher who always tries to say, please do not speak, please be quiet, and so on. It becomes impossible to have effective work in the classroom. But if the classroom climate changes through performance characters, having self-discipline, curiosity, perseverance, and so on, then the teachers will also be very much motivated to teach their specialist areas, their specialties. So we would observe in such classes higher learning and teaching motivation. Therefore, both performance character and moral character are very important. And according to your authors, these two different systems of character are obligations. Yapmak zorunda hissettiğimiz şeyler, obligation. So an obligation is something which is ascribed to us through society. We feel we have to do it because the society demands it, or we feel it by our conscience, vicdanımız, that we should do it. So everybody has an obligation to develop his or her talents to produce the best possible outcome as an instrument of self-respect. So what does that mean? It means that if you wish as an individual to feel a respect towards yourself, to have value in your existence, you are responsible to your conscience to develop your abilities or skills to the best possible outcome, to produce the best possible outcome. So this is an obligation. It's a personal obligation. And everybody has an obligation to use his or her talents to produce high quality work, which will improve the quality of life for others. So this is about moral character. So the first obligation, developing one's talents, is about having a performance character. But the second one, using one's own abilities and skills to produce high quality work to improve the lives of others, this is about moral character concerning the welfare of others. So it means that if, as individuals, we develop our own skills, we develop our own talents, we do things to improve our abilities, inborn tendencies, to have a good quality products, this is to create yourself, this is to have a meaningful life. But that's not enough. If you have certain skills and abilities that you can use to produce important, successful, high quality outcomes, products, then you should use it for the welfare of others. So that's the moral character. So both performance character and moral character support each other. Without moral character, for instance, one might set selfish or even personal goals. So a person might wish to be a very rich, a very wealthy person, and can do anything possible to have the highest income or to have the highest wealth possible. without considering the rights of others. This person, for instance, perhaps may steal. So without moral character, no matter the person is very clever, very self-disciplined, very perseverant in having a wealth, this person can engage in misbehaviors, although these misbehaviors can lead this person to the success that as he or she defines it, so being very wealthy, this person cannot be said to be moral or ethical if he does not control his behaviors through a moral character. So self-discipline, industriousness, curiosity, perseverance has no meaning if the person does not have self-control or benevolence or ethics as important values. Just imagine the other point of view. Without performance character, one might have good intentions, but cannot realize them. So imagine a person who wants to do good things for the society, to help the society in its problems. But if this person is not self-disciplined, if this person cannot effectively plan and implement projects, if this person is lazy, let's say, how is it possible that his good intentions or her good intentions will translate into good products for the society? So one might have a very moral character. Helpfulness might be very important for this person, for instance. Social responsibility can be very important for this person. These are components of moral character. But how can we expect that this person can achieve a good, high-quality product for the welfare of others or the society? Therefore, according to this model that the authors developed, both performance and character and moral character complement each other, and a person having both types of characters can produce the best possible outcome both for himself or herself or for the society. So following this framework, the authors present 8 character strengths which are important for having both performance and moral character. So these character strengths are basic abilities or skills or basic values that the person is expected to have or is expected to acquire in character education programs. So these 8 character strengths are the guiding principles that we should implement or that we should embed in our character education programs. Now I'm going to go through the details of these 8 character strengths. So the first character strength is lifelong learner and critical thinker. So if a person has a good character, it means that this person has a lifelong motivation to learn, and this person can think in critical terms. So what are the relevant assets? What are the objectives that we might, or outcomes that we might observe in the behaviors of such a person? This person strives to acquire the knowledge that characterizes an educated person. So a person has an obligation to have knowledge in his or her specialty, or the general knowledge that an average citizen should have in the contemporary society. This person approaches learning as a lifelong process. So for such kind of a person, university education is not about having a diploma or having a right or access to jobs or occupation through its occupational profession. So it is a lifelong learning process. So graduation is not the end of learning. Graduation is just a station or a relay station, but learning will go on after graduation. So the person is expected to keep on reading, making research, and thinking about social issues and personal issues in his profession or her profession as well. This person is expected to demonstrate skills of critical analysis. Critical analysis meaning thinking in 2 diverse ways, looking at both sides of the same issue, can develop arguments both supporting and refuting the same point of view. So this is called critical analysis. This person takes seriously the perspective of other people. So it is an obligation to think why the other person is thinking in just the opposite way than we think. This person seeks expert opinion and credible evidence. Now, remember persuasion studies that we went through in social psychology course. Expert opinion is important to the extent that this expert is providing us scientifically based knowledge. So this is called credible evidence based on research, statistics, and evidence. So this is called critical thinking. Without evidence, no idea is or can be said to be true or correct. And that person who is a lifelong learner and a critical thinker makes connections and integrates knowledge. So there is a problem in most educational processes that students compartmentalize, bölümleme, compartmentalize knowledge. So just is something like this. You learn something in social psychology, you learn something in developmental psychology, you learn something in individual counseling courses, but you observe that these are independent courses. No, a critical thinker, lifelong learner tries to integrate each one of them. You learn something in social psychology course, you think, how can I use it in my individual counseling practice, and so on. And these people can generate alternative solutions. This is about creativity, and can demonstrate a willingness to admit error and modify thinking. So thinking is not a perfect process which can bring always the truth. We can have errors and biases in thinking, and you know these biases from your social psychology course. So we should have such a character that when we make errors in our thinking, we should admit that, okay, this is a mistake. I thought wrongfully, so I should change the way that I think according to new evidence. So this is a typical critical thinker. So this is character strength 1. Character strength 2 is defined as diligent and capable performer. So what is a capable performer? Strives for excellence. This is not being perfectionist. This is having excellence as a standard to evaluate our own work. The person gives best effort. Excellence and effort is important. No excellent outcome comes without persistent effort. So this is an important character strength. This person demonstrates initiative and self-discipline, makes his or her own decisions, starts doing things, and keeps on doing these things until the outcome is reached in a disciplined manner. He or she knows standards of quality and creates high-quality products, takes pride in work. So olduğu kadar değil, olana kadar is a principle which perhaps sometimes you have heard from me. So this person can easily observe the mistakes, can change them in the product to have a high quality product. And if the product is excellent, it is high quality, then this person is also willing to praise himself or herself. I did a good work because it has this quality, that quality, and so on. So this is not boasting of. Kendinle övünme değil, hava atma değil. This is not boasting of. This is assessing the person's own excellence as it appears in the product. This is not hubris, in other words, kibir. This is pride, true pride, gurur duymak yaptığı işle. This person sets personal goals and assesses progress. So goal setting is very important in the self-regulation of behavior. Remember that we are more likely to achieve our goals if we set attainable, reachable goals, and if these goals help us to assess whether we are making progress towards the final product. So the person should evaluate his progress in the process of producing. And finally, the person perseveres in the face of difficulty. So the person does not give up. He or she keeps on trying to produce the excellent or high quality work. The third character strength is social and emotional skills. Socially and emotionally skilled person. The person possesses a healthy self-confidence, not boosted self-confidence, a realistic, truthful self-confidence. In other words, it's the self-esteem which is defined by true behaviors or true skills that the person have. And the person should have a positive attitude towards doing things and himself or as well or herself. The person demonstrates basic courtesy in social situations, nezaket. This is an This is a social skill that we behave in accord with the welfare of other people. Develops positive interpersonal relationships that include sensitivity to the feelings of others. This is an emotional skill. This is called empathy, for instance, and the capacity for confrontation. Confrontation means, yüzleşme, means that somebody resolves the social conflict by speaking out or speaking up his or her arguments. So the person does not exit the situation, does not cover the conflict as it didn't appear at all. Just the opposite. The person sees the conflict, does his or her best to speak about or talk about this conflict with the counterpart to have a solution in a peaceful manner. So this requires assertiveness and self-confidence, of course. The person therefore is required to have effective communication skills. The person listens well and the person speaks well so that the other person can understand. He or she is expected to work well with others and therefore resolves conflicts fairly. So this is, if a conflict, for instance, is just because of the wrong behaviors of the person, then the person should be able to admit his or her own errors or misbehaviors to the counterpart. So that's fair. And finally, he is expected to demonstrate emotional intelligence, including self-knowledge and the ability to manage emotions. So self-knowledge is knowing yourself truthfully, but that's not always possible. We talked about this last week, and we talked about this in social psychology courses, but knowing oneself is the very basic obligation towards towards ourselves. The fourth character strength is being an ethical thinker, taking ethics into account when we think and behave. So the person is expected to possess moral discernment, including good judgment, moral reasoning, and ethical wisdom. And the person has a well-formed conscience, wijdan, including a sense of obligation to do the right thing. So the control of the right behavior is in the person, and the person takes the responsibility of own actions. Remember the philosophical arguments about this. The person is expected to have a strong moral identity, which is defined by his or her moral commitments, and the person possesses the moral competence or know-how needed to translate conscience identity into effective moral behavior. What does that mean? What is moral competence? You might have the necessary guiding principles, moral, ethical values as part of your identity. For instance, you might believe that honesty is very important, but you should also know how to translate honesty into moral behavior. This is called moral competence. So an ethical thinker means the person effectively thinks about what he or she can do to express the important moral values in one's life. Saying simply, I am an honest person, honesty is important to me, has no meaning to have a good character. A good character is finally defined by, or ultimately defined by, one's behaviors. So the person should think about how to produce meaningful behaviors which are in accord with his or her own moral values. Then comes the fifth character strength, which is being respectful and responsible moral agent committed to consistent moral action. Respectful and responsible moral agent. An agent is a person who willfully and consciously chooses to behave in a certain way. So a respectful and responsible moral agent means that a person willfully and consciously chooses to do the right thing that makes him or her a moral agent, because this is a matter of respect and responsibility, both for the self and the other people. So the person respects the rights and dignity, asalet, dignity of all persons. Everybody is at least valuable as we are. This person understands that respect includes the right of conscience to disagree respectfully. So having respect for the self means that you have your own ideas, your ways of understanding the world, and if somebody thinks just in the opposite way or offends you, so if somebody behaves in such a way that his or her behavior is very rude, not courteous. So you should be able to speak up for your own worldview, to defend your values in a respectful way. If you can do this, you have respect for yourself as well. The person possesses a strong sense of personal efficacy and responsibility. Efficacy, the belief that the person can do anything when he or she wants to do it because he or she has the necessary skills to do this behavior. And responsibility to do what's right. Okay, so the person is expected to feel that his or her skills are sufficient to produce the moral behavior and feels this responsibility to do so. And the person takes responsibility and accepts responsibility. So taking responsibility for mistakes, it's a virtue. Accepting responsibility, that the person must be a good example and a positive influence in the society. And finally, such a character strength involves developing and exercising capacity for moral leadership. The person is expected to be a leader for others to behave in moral ways as well. The sixth character, okay, in 5 minutes I'm going to finish, then we will have a break. The sixth character trait is being self-disciplined person who pursues a healthy lifestyle. Remember my motto, hasta olmayın, okay? I know that it seemed a little bit insane when I first told this to my students, but this is about having such kind of a character strength. You are responsible from your own health as well. So this is actually what we are experiencing about coronavirus situation now, okay? People who lack self-discipline and responsibility keep on going outside, violating the social isolation rule, okay? Now, that's a very obvious example that we are experiencing in our lives. So this person demonstrates self-control across a wide range of situations, pursues physical, emotional, and mental health, and makes responsible personal choices that contribute to continuous self-development, a healthy lifestyle, and a positive future. So is it a responsible personal choice that people go fishing in Istanbul when coronavirus is spreading fast? So this is about self-discipline. This is about self-respect first. The person does not care about his or her own health, but then being outside makes this person a carrier, okay? And then this person can spread the infection. So this is being irresponsible towards other people who, and this is not moral because it doesn't take into account the welfare of other people. The seventh character strength is contributing community members, is being a contributing community member and a democratic citizen. So the person having all these skills, abilities, and character strengths contributes to family, contributes to classroom, school, and community at large, demonstrates civic virtues and skills needed for participation in democratic processes, appreciates the nation's democratic heritage and democratic values, and demonstrates awareness of interdependence and the sense of responsibility to humanity. I believe this is very obvious. I have no other words to talk about this. And finally, the final character strength is being a spiritual person, crafting a life of noble purpose. So what is being a spiritual person? The person considers existential questions. So the person has an obligation to think about what is the meaning of life? What is happiness? What's the purpose of my life? Or what's the purpose of anything which happens around me? And then answering this question can be in very different ways. This can be a religious way or a non-religious way, but all of us have a worldview which provides meaning to us. Then, according to our own worldview, according to our own values, we must seek a life of noble, asil purpose. Okay? So we should find a morally acceptable way of fitting in the society and making our own lives meaningful for both ourselves and for other people. So thinking about what can I do best in my life as job, what can I do in excellence so that I feel good about, or I feel meaningful in my life, and I have some utility for other people around me. This person formulates life goals and ways to pursue these life goals, cultivates an appreciation of transcendent values, transcendent, aşkın. The person does not care for the self, but care for the others as well, okay? Such as truth, beauty, goodness. This person pursues authentic happiness. Authentic means real happiness, not a kind of happiness built on hedonistic, sensuous experiences, but a happiness which comes through a meaningful life. This person is expected to possess, to have a rich inner life. And inner life means a mental life, thinking about important issues deeply, reading, learning, exploring, searching, making explanations, and thinking about them. This is a rich inner life. And finally, this person pursues deep, meaningful connections, feeling connected to other people, having affection for other people, children, the nature, the plants, the animals, or a higher power. You might call this God, or you might call this universe, whatever you call it. But the person is expected to have connection with the existence outside his or her existence. So these are the 8 character strengths that the authors focused on. Now I will stop here for 10 minutes, and then we will go on with the strategies that the authors suggest for implementing this character strengths in a character education program. So now we have a break.